The purpose of this presentation is to explore the possibility of implementing virtual teams at Tesla. The company, renowned for its electric cars and clean energy, was founded in 2003 by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Elon Musk has been its CEO since 2008, and the company reached a market cap of $1 trillion in October 2021. It employs almost 100,000 people and is based in Austin, Texas. It has 3 factories called Gigafactories in the United States, California, Nevada, and New York, and 1 in China, with 2 more under construction in Texas and Germany. Its European headquarters are in the Netherlands, and it has service centers and showrooms in London, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Gangnam, Melbourne, Dubai, Amman, and Tel Aviv. Being an international company, Tesla lends itself to globally distributed and multicultural virtual teams. This choice of team type allows there to be greater liberty in choosing from the greatest talents the company has to offer worldwide. They can operate efficiently without the cost and time limitations imposed by travel. In order to provide a coherent framework in which to conduct such a team, we recommend the following principles and guidelines. Clear and consistent communication. The team should decide in advance by what means it will communicate with one another and establish protocols embodying the 4 principles of effective distant communication: availability, context, synchronous communication, and message prioritization. Leverage cultural differences, which helps prevent cultural barriers from hamstringing the team by grounding the team's effort in both purpose and trust. Clear task assignment, which roots each member's contributions in the unified purpose of the team's goals. Accountability amongst team members, which help further develop the trust that team members have in one another and in the team itself. Collaboration and innovative thinking that shepherds the team through the 4 collaborative stages: design, data collection, processing, and action. And once the team is formed, it should be instructed in the 5 stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. These stages detail how the group first gets to know each other, experiences conflict, develops habits, and leverages those habits to great productive effect towards its goals. Finally, the team dissolves when its mission is accomplished. Next, we'll analyze some challenges that working in virtual teams can present, identify some solutions, and make recommendations. One of the challenges that may arise when working in geographically dispersed teams are the time difference. Tesla is a global company that relies on the efforts of distinct regional groups of its employees who are separated by vast distances occupying different time zones. Ways to combat this include projection. Providing enough planning and projection prior to the meeting in order to optimize participation around the globe. This will only work if the meetings are effectively communicated to the staff. Patterns. If the meetings are conducted at the same time throughout the week, month, or year, this will allow prior planning and preparations despite the time differences. Digital meeting platforms like Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and WhatsApp allow for live meeting with both audio and video signal transmissions. This technology is made possible by Voice over Internet Protocol technology. Through these digital systems, communication and meetings can be easily conducted synchronously even in different time zones. Digitally recorded meetings. If the meetings are digitally recorded, then staff around the world can access the material at their convenience without having to attend the meeting live in person. Annual in-person meeting. 1 touch point per year will be very important to fostering a cohesive team. This method increases morale and collaborative problem solving throughout the company. Also, this will allow the company to understand, learn, and respect other cultures and customs of the geographical locations throughout the company. Another challenge can be communication. These are some ways to mitigate this problem. Storyboards create a shared forum where information can be shared throughout the company. The use of storyboards is essential when trying to effectively disseminate important information. Posting all information at one source will alleviate the barriers to communication and allow for the instant exchange of ideas. Geographically dispersed teams. Establishing teams to work together will ensure that planning and execution is done collectively and not alone. These teams should have members located at the different satellite locations, but will depend on the focus and goal of the task. Having accountability to the team will force members to communicate to one another regardless of distance. SharePoints and share drives are computing tools that exist on a company's digital network that enable accessibility to necessary information from anywhere in the world without requiring access to the wired network on which the data may exist. If there are any working documents, the members will be able to actively edit at a single point. Utilizing these living documents will allow the input of all satellite locations. Virtual private networks allow members to access information on a company's network from their homes, not even connected wirelessly to a company's servers. These are made possible by cloud computing. Digital communication vehicles such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WhatsApp, and Skype allow accessibility to team members across the globe. These platforms will allow team members to see and speak to each other, which allow for the exchange of important context such as voice tone and body language, which are lost in text communication alone. For times when the barrier to communication is a language one, Google Translate and other language translation products can help bridge the gap. We believe that the following the sun model will be appropriate for Tesla. What this model means is for people in geographically distanced teams to coordinate work in sequence, beginning with team members in the east and moving west as the sun brings the morning to them first and those in the west later. Tesla can have members working round the clock as employees in Asia end their workday as those in Europe begin, whose workday ends when employees in North and South America begin, and so on. This method precludes the need for alternate work shifts that begin in the afternoon or evening and last into the night or early morning. This strategy illustrates to the company's employees that their family and personal time is valued. Tesla is a company with facilities in every hemisphere, and being spread across the different time zones enables this method to be used. At any time of day, the company will have staff working somewhere in their local daytime, and the posture and the size of the company fosters this model. The model would also benefit customers. Tesla's customer base is spread throughout the world. By using the Follow the Sun model, it can provide service to all of its customers at any time of day. Customers can also use Tesla's mobile app, through which they are able to contact technicians and administrators, choose upgrades to their vehicles, schedule service appointments, and pay any bills that they have outstanding. Tesla's employees also benefit from this arrangement. This model respects the personal time of employees. It enables the use of dashboards to effectively communicate any information that needs to be dispersed. Daily handoffs and touchpoints are important while utilizing this model because it will ensure that efforts are collaborative and replicated. We highly recommend the Follow the Sun model. This will be successful in this company based on the size and location of satellite facilities throughout the company. This also allows for customers to have access to the company's products and service regardless of their location or time of inquiry. The company is able to align their goals and still keep the employee morale and customer service as part of their overall strategy. For team composition, we looked at a number of variables. The ideal size for a globally distributed multicultural virtual team is between 4 and 5 members. Teams of less than 10 have been shown to be more effective and efficient than teams of 10 or more, and smaller teams are even easier to coordinate and more nimble than that. Since not every conceivable team goal can be accomplished by a team so small, this also allows for the possibility of each team member overseeing their own local teams that work towards the primary group's objectives. With regards to the composition of the group, the data is mixed about whether heterogeneous teams perform better than homogeneous teams. Signs point to homogeneous teams avoiding conflict better and suffering fewer communication breakdowns, as well as boasting lower turnover rates, but it depends mostly on how the teams are similar or different. Teams should be heterogeneous with regards to extroversion, but homogeneous with regards to conscientiousness or industriousness. That is to say that outgoing people can work very well with shy people and vice versa, but having a team with members with vastly different work ethics can cause conflict. Even teams with members who all exert low industriousness work together more productively than teams with members who have some high and some low. Similarly, teams should be diverse in terms of backgrounds and experiences, but may be more similar in opinions and preferences. Another instinct to dispel is the impulse to fill a team with the most experienced members available. Studies based on successful startups show that experience can be a detriment if it leads members to attempt to solve new problems the way they successfully solved past ones. There should be sufficient time given to allow teams to proceed through the 5 stages of team development naturally. If they are expected to norm and perform without having processed through forming and storming first, and properly, the later stages may never successfully materialize. Group cohesion is not an absolute good. It can be helped by homogeneity, small size, and time, but too much cohesion can lead to pressure to conform and groupthink. Social loafing can be avoided by assigning tasks to team members publicly in front of the other members. With regards to the virtual nature of the proposed team, virtuality is a measure of the disassociation members make from their work and the team experience as a whole. This can negatively impact a member's engagement and motivation, but it can be helped by video conferencing over phone calls, chat rooms over emails, in-person conversations over text messages, and so on. Any method that adds immediacy and conveys meaning that can be perceived through the senses. Studies have shown that cultural differences add to virtuality, which bodes poorly for globally distributed teams. However, the easiest way to ameliorate this is through shared team leadership rather than hierarchical or authoritative leadership. And it is for that reason that the leadership style that best suits this virtual team is shared team leadership. We evaluated 10 team roles as delineated by their social, task, or boundary spanning functions. The task roles are contractor, creator, contributor, completer, and critic. The social roles are calibrator, communicator, and cooperator. The boundary spanning roles are consul and coordinator. We believe for this virtual team, a contractor is not necessary because the team size is small and the work so divided will not need much organizing. The creator role is also not necessary because the team members can evaluate their own task process structures. The completer role is vital because it puts ideas into action. The critic role could be reasonably subsumed by the existing members. The contributor brings necessary information and expertise. The calibrator role is a social counterpart to the creator role, which we determined to not need. The communicator is vital for keeping all members on the same page in both work and in spirit. But the cooperator is not necessary because the team members should be supporting one another. Between the consul and coordinator roles, we believe the consul role is more important to the success of this virtual team because it is more useful to the team to have the information it needs to achieve its goals than to be moderated by a coordinator if it begins moving out of the trajectory of the organization's needs. A healthy, high-performing team is more than just having people with the right skills for the required functions. It strongly relies on healthy team dynamics so that everyone can work cohesively. Teams need a balance of personality and skill sets to function and work effectively. When reviewing Gallup strengths, for instance, a team with no members with strengths in executing will have a difficult time with deliverables. Here are some popular methods for testing team members for their suitability in working together. Myers-Briggs is one of the oldest personality tests available and separates people into 4 pairs of personality traits: extroversion and introversion, sensing or intuition, thinking or feeling, and judging or perceiving. The selection from between these pairs results in 16 possible personality types. The DISC assessment was designed to predict job performance and measures where you lie on 4 traits: dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. It has a low validity but high reliability. Clifton's strengths are based on a 40-year study of human strengths for which analytics and advisory company Gallup created a language of the 34 most common talents and developed this assessment to help people discover and describe these talents. Its 4 categories of themes include executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking, and are particularly useful for team building. Assessments can help balance a team as members need to have congruent or complementary personalities, soft skills, and values. Assessment tools can also be used to profile entire groups, and they can predict whether the group is likely to get along and perform well or not. For instance, teams with members who are open-minded and emotionally intelligent use conflict to improve performance, but neurotic and closed-minded teams are rent asunder by disagreement. Tesla could take steps to limit the challenges associated with personality differences among team members by creating balanced teams. A team with greater balance of strengths and weaknesses would be one where members' strengths might be another's weakness and vice versa. They would have fewer collective weaknesses, expose them to risk this way, rather than abundance of strengths in a few select themes. They could develop clearly defined operating procedures in order to have clear expectations of work practices and deliverable expectations. Because Tesla is a global company whose geographically distributed virtual teams would be comprised of members from different countries, some concerns in having country cultural differences apply. A language barrier would be an obstacle if team members spoke different languages. Even some translations could create communication barriers, as many abstract ideas may not translate neatly into the other language. A way to attenuate this effect would be to hire cultural advisors that are able to speak the language of the hosting country. Ensure that the advisors understand the intent of the company's goals and can translate it correctly. Cultural sensitivity can also create conflict. Customs and cultures vary depending on geographical location, so holidays and religions may be very important and dictate work schedules and customer activity. It is beneficial for a company to show respect for these events and incorporate them into their framing for business strategy. The best way to address cultural sensitivity is to develop cultural awareness classes for potential team members. This class would revolve around the cultural values of the places where their distant virtual teammates live. The class would cover the customs and courtesies from different host nations. A shared understanding will foster a respectful and professional environment. Synchronization meetings. Establishing a synchronization meeting at different satellite locations throughout the globe. These meetings should be in person and include many customs from the host nation. Educational tours and visits should be planned for the company employees. This would encourage inclusion and engagement with the host nation partners. Decision-making for the company should always include the host nation's customs and cultures. For instance, Ramadan is usually around the summer months, which drastically changes the work cycle for people who celebrate it. So if you have a satellite location in Malaysia, regular business may be impacted. Before making decisions, these things should be considered. Tesla would do well to mind Hofstede's 6 dimensions of culture, the first of which, power distance, describes the degree to which inequality is endorsed by those on the unfortunate end of it. Countries with low-level power distance dimension are more egalitarian, seeing work superiors more as equals and less as lords. Hofstede's second dimension is individualism or collectivism. This describes how comfortable employees are thinking and acting as individuals rather than collectively. The US rates high on this scale, which reflects the spirit of freedom and individuality that endures here. In a country with a culture with low individualism, people strongly identify with and are undyingly loyal to their collective identity, whether that be a religious, political, or familial affiliation. Masculinity and femininity is the third dimension that describes a society's values as defined by traditional gender traits such as competitiveness or nurturing. High scores embody masculinity and include assertiveness and achievement. If a country emphasizes compassion, quality of life, and cooperation, then it is considered to be feminine and will score much lower. Hofstede's fourth dimension is uncertainty avoidance and describes a country's tolerance for risk-taking. Some societies orient themselves around avoiding risk and insist on a high degree of order to prevent it. Hofstede's fifth dimension is long-term versus short-term orientation. If a country has a high long-term orientation, then it values learning, accountability, and self-discipline, which are keys to long-term success and stability. Countries with a low long-term orientation, or rather a high short-term orientation, strives for instant gains and get-rich-quick schemes. Hofstede's sixth and final dimension is indulgence versus restraint, which describes the degree to which people show restraint or indulge in their impulses, desires, and vices. Tesla's virtual, geographically diverse team will only be as good as the decisions it will be capable of making. Each plan of attack begins with brainstorming solutions, and we propose the adoption of these rules to optimize the quality of the ideas proffered. Don't evaluate any offered solutions during the brainstorming stage. This is only for coming up with ideas. The evaluation of those ideas will happen later. The leader should place no parameters on solutions offered and should encourage ideas that seem outside the boundaries of useful, practical, or appropriate consideration. The brainstorming step is for generating the highest number of ideas. Therefore, this should not be limited to the highest quality of ideas, but rather looking for as many as can be conceived. People can add to or modify ideas presented by others, and ideas belong to the group, not to the individuals that initially offered them. The types of brainstorming include individual, open, and structured, and are based on the degree of interaction between brainstorming participants and the method by which ideas are aired and documented. We believe that open is the freest form of brainstorming, and though it likely does not lead to any better or worse outcomes than other forms, it does create a spirit of enthusiasm and excitement that participants will want to relive in future sessions. Some rules for leaders conducting brainstorming sessions would be to limit the session to the solution of one specific problem. That is, the problem should be known beforehand and the session should only concern itself with solving that one problem. Rules for brainstorming should be explained to participants beforehand to prevent unwanted criticism before it starts, and the rules should be enforced. Ideas should be written down or recorded in some way. Try to prevent one or two people from dominating the session. Push past the period where the flow of ideas begins to ebb. If a proffered idea needs to be restated to be better understood, clarify without implicitly criticizing it. After the ideas have all been generated, they need to be evaluated. The same group who created the ideas should also evaluate them. For the Tesla virtual team to succeed, they also need to be able to prevent succumbing to groupthink. First, they'll need to identify it. The illusion of invulnerability is a belief that the group cannot fail. Collective rationalization is where bad ideas profligate because everyone thinks so highly of one another. Belief in the group's morality is when the group thinks it can do no wrong. Pressure on dissenters is when those with minority opinions are pressured to conform or leave the group. Stereotypes of outside groups objectify other groups and those outside of the group to less than equal consideration based on preconceived ideas. Self-censorship is related to pressure on dissenters, except that those who disagree remain quiet rather than face the pressure of being expelled from the group. Illusion of unanimity is when the group believes that everyone in it is in agreement. Self-appointed mind guards are members who downplay criticism of the group and any evidence that it is failing. Brainstorming may not actually create better outcomes than individuals coming up with ideas on their own. However, only groups can accomplish blamestorming, which is when idea generation devolves into thinking up reasons the ideas won't work, including blaming the boss, company, etc. Another problem that brainstorming faces is evaluation apprehension, which is when people are afraid to offer half-baked ideas because they won't survive the evaluation phase. Electronic brainstorming may reduce effects of some negative face-to-face sessions, but can also lead to social loafing. Before virtual teams can be implemented at Tesla, we need to identify optimal information and communication technology to facilitate communication, collaboration, and decision-making. Skype video calls for live team meetings and collaboration, Skype chat for peer-to-peer instantaneous collaboration, email for non-urgent communication. Team documents shared via Google Drive allow team members to work on the same files from geographically distant places. Virtual team members should be trained to use the required software, manage an anonymous environment, provide anonymous participation and feedback, follow social protocol, and respect cultural differences. The Powell and Hertel studies both found that virtual team members who had received training in these areas functioned more effectively than virtual teams without the training. With regards to the cost-benefit analysis of virtual teams as opposed to cross-site travel, we find that virtual teams create greater equality, reduce costs, allow communication across time zones and locations, and enables greater access to experts. But they also experience technical problems, have difficulty synchronizing meetings across time zones, can have negative cultural issues, require relevant training and comfort with technology, and lack social presence. Our position is still that virtual teams are the correct choice for Tesla at this time. All that is left is to decide how best to manage this virtual team. Managing a geographically dispersed team will only work with effective communication. Many digital communication vehicles can be used to ensure that this is achieved. Development of virtual communication platforms is key and easily accessible anywhere in the world with just an internet connection. The use of applications like Microsoft Teams, Skype, and Zoom will allow you to communicate at a distance and share products with each other. It is also very important that an in-person meeting occurs early on. The virtual platform is a great way to communicate, but a personal meeting between leadership and subordinates makes a big impact. Planning and projection demand a well-communicated, comprehensive plan with intent. This plan needs to be distributed throughout the company. The plan should include a shared working schedule which will elaborate needs and direction for each meeting. This plan should have annual training calendars which include regular synchronizations with customs and cultures considered while in development. We recommend that the manager of this virtual team at Tesla take these steps, which we believe are the best tactics for managing a geographically dispersed team. Finally, a brief enumeration of other factors that make up the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats associated with operating a multicultural, geographically distributed virtual team. One of the most obvious weaknesses is the possibility of social loafing. People do less work when they are part of a group, and their individual contributions are indistinguishable from those of the group. This is doubly true when there's a computer screen to hide behind. One of the opportunities of virtual teams is that you naturally spend less time in meetings with one another due to distance. The related threat is that teams may try to overcompensate for this and dedicate more time to collaborating through virtual meetings than is necessary to be efficient. One of the greatest strengths virtual teams offers is the ability to assemble the greatest talent from around the world to work together. The threat, though, is that these people will not know who they are working with as well as their local colleagues, and this can create trust barriers that wouldn't exist locally. Another weakness is that engagement will be less, all other things being equal. Being part of a team does help employee engagement, but the effects of this will be less than an in-person team that collaborates locally. And the virtuality of the experience necessarily means that participants will be less engaged with each other strictly as a consequence of the format. One weakness is that virtual teams depend more on email than they would to communicate with colleagues locally. Email discipline is an art form still lost on many talented and well-meaning people. Coordinating video teleconferencing or phone meetings between members in different time zones will privilege those members whose time zones are closest to one another over those whose time zones are more distant. This may be in effect up to the point of either excluding those far enough away or requiring they keep irregular work hours. The greatest strength of virtual teams is the cost. Not having to travel in order to coordinate with distant teammates saves money and time and likely benefits the environment. Even visiting colleagues who work across town or in other buildings on the same campus can cost time, money, and carbon emissions. Tesla's choice to adopt virtual teams is the correct one because the cost is less, the the methods of communication and collaboration are more streamlined, and because Tesla began as a company committed to making electric cars in order to reduce the environmental impact of burning fossil fuels. They occupy facilities spanning the globe and boast some of the most talented experts in the industry, and yet traveling by air to connect with teammates in person weakens the gains they've made for the environment. Virtual teams are not without their drawbacks, but if any company can take their virtual collaboration experience and optimize it to work better for them than the in-person alternative, it would be Tesla. And we have a feeling they'll sell that technology back to us once they figure it out.